SCOPA is going through the response that I gave. If they ask me to come, will I go? Yes, of course. I will not wait to be summoned. SCOPA is an important body of our parliamentary architecture. They want even a sitting president to go. I will go and be, as you say, interrogated. I wouldn't see it as an interrogation. I would see it as clarification that they may well want from me. So I have no qualms about that.
The committee on a 6-4 majority has resolved that the President will not be invited to appear before the committee to answer on the allegations of misuse of funds for political parties, and on the basis of the audio recording and on the responses that he has provided.
The MPs in SCOPA, they're voting on a 6-10 basis, that 6-4, I believe, basis that the President not appear before SCOPA. This breaking with the tradition of this committee. Normally, they would reach these decisions via consensus, but been pushed this time around to vote on the matter. Did the ANC use the majority to shield accountability? And why are they contradicting reports or comments being made around this issue of the misuse of public funds for party political campaigning coming from the President? Let's hear from ANC's head of Presidency now, Sibongile Besani. To be a part of the conversation, WhatsApp your comments and your questions, 072-110-5584, or tweet us tonight at Newzroom 405. Mr. Besani, good evening, and thank you very much for your time. In the lead up to this, of course, firstly, we saw one of the MPs, or ANC MP, Mervyn Dirks, raising the issue of bringing the President to come in account on this matter. He, of course, was then suspended for insisting on making that call as an MP by the ANC. Secondly, as I mentioned, we see a breakaway from tradition in that particular committee of reaching decisions via consensus, and this time around forcing this matter into a vote instead of the usual way of doing things. The situation on the face of it feels like the ANC blocking accountability via majority. Now, you would know that this is why, in most instances, Parliament has been has consistently failed to hold the executive to account on the abuse of power. What does the ANC have to say about that to society?
Thank you very much, and thanks to the listeners. Thanks for having me. Look, Thabo, I don't think there's a breakaway from tradition, as you put it. This is a democratic country. And what has been happening is that in any committee, debates will ensue and people will reach consensus. And where there is no consensus, people will have to break to get to a conclusion through a voting. So I want to believe that, I don't speak on behalf of SCOPA, I want to believe that the ANC didn't just go into any debate by just flaunting its majoritarian. I want to believe that there were discussions, and flowing from those discussions, and when there was a deadlock, then a resolution mechanism, which is normally voting, had to be applied. But as the ANC, what we are encouraged about once again is that the President of the ANC and the President of the country has demonstrated once again that whenever he's been asked to account, he will do so. President has given his response, and he gave his response within the timeframes that were provided. And in that response, he was elaborate into the context that related to the leaked audio. So I want to believe that if people could have the benefit of the response of the President, they will realize that whilst the SCOPA asked for the context, the President elaborated as to what was that context in which he said what he said at the meeting of the NEC of the ANC.
Did the President then either mislead the NEC in what he said, or is misleading Parliament now in terms of the comments around this? Because if you listen to the leaked audio, he's saying there, which, by the way, Parliamentary Legal Services are saying is now confirmed, that that is indeed the voice of the President in that leaked audio clip. And this is coming from a closed meeting of the National Executive Committee of the ANC, where he's saying investigations will reveal that a lot of public money was used to fund political campaigns. I said this, in this case, I am prepared to fall on the sword, so that the CR17 campaign, yes, should be the only one that's looked at and not the others, because the image of the ANC would then come into disrepute. Now the President is saying, I do not have any direct or specific information on alleged misuse of public funds. That sounds contradictory to me, where in that meeting he's adamant and sure that the investigations will reveal this. Now he's saying, no, I don't have direct knowledge of it.
Thank you. No, surely without context, it may sound contradictory. What is the context? The first thing is that the context is the NEC meeting. In that NEC meeting, what was being discussed? It is the CR17 funds. And the President was saying, we all know that there have been issues that relates to funding of ANC campaigns. And this is public knowledge. And where does this notion of public knowledge comes from? It comes from the fact that there have been reports or testimonies made by various people at the Zondo Commission. So when the President said, we all know, he was referring to what the testimonies that had been made at the Zondo Commission with regards to allegations or issues of campaign, usage of state money. So part of the context is that we're in an NEC meeting and the President says, I'll fall on my sword. I'm not going to use all these other things that we know about to divert people from the CR17 funds at that time. So it is important to underline that. Secondly, it is important to underline the fact that all these things that the President spoke of are things that were in the public domain. And in the letter that the President has made, he asserts and he gives example on which day did people make testimonies to these, to these allegations or accusations about state money being used for ANC campaigns. So if you don't have full context of that meeting, because remember that audio is just selective, it does not capture the context. So that's what the President has been explaining in his letter. And this is the question that has been, one of the questions that has been put to him by SCOPA. So indeed, without a full appreciation of context, you are bound to think that there's contradiction. But there's no contradiction.
So in the comments,
context has been given.
So what you're telling us that in the comments that the President was making before the NEC of the ANC, he was relying on public information and saying he is willing to fall on the sword, on his sword, and protect the image of the ANC from that public information that is already out there. It certainly doesn't make sense.
No, this is what is happening. The matter that is under discussion, that was under discussion, was the CR17 funds. And in the process of discussing that, other allegations, accusations around state usage of state funds for ANC campaign were brought in. The President says, look, I'm not going to use these other accusations that are in the public domain to divert people from the CR17 funds. I'll rather fall on my sword. I will focus on the CR17 funds than take this than use other campaigns and so on. And the President then reminded the meeting that we all know that there are these things that have been brought to our attention through, which are in the public domain, through the Judicial Commission of Inquiry, which is investigative in nature. Through and the testimonies that were brought there were brought by various people. Even I think one of the DGs of the SSA made this kind of assertions at the Judicial Commission of Inquiry. So the president, when he says fall on the sword, it related to the matter which was on the table. Secondly, the president was asserting that when people use state money, they must not bring, for campaigns, they must not bring the name of the ANC. So when president refers to protecting the image of the ANC, he refers to the commitment that we have made at conference, that we must protect the image of the ANC. It would be wrong that people are told that the ANC is involved in corruption. It would be wrong. So he was doing that as a leader of the ANC, because he seeks to implement what the ANC said around the issue of corruption.
Yeah. But
it was not about being
these issues that you're raising about SSA and so on, and the use of public money in campaigns, as you put it, are issues in the public domain. So there is really no need to be shielding those particular matters because they are out there anyway. The Commission is already looking at those matters and those investigations. And if indeed they are to have an impact on the image of the ANC, they will have that impact. What would cause the president to say, well, I would rather have them look at my campaign funding than the others?
No. Look, President was saying, when a person campaigns and trying to, or getting, maybe being supported by a private person, it's different from when people use state money to advance their, and it does not say it is good, it says it is different than you find people using state resources to advance their political agendas. That's where that statement comes from, comparing a person getting money from an individual and a person using state resources, the taxpayers' money, to advance his or her own agendas. That's where that statement comes from.
Well, you don't think that SCOPA would benefit from having an interaction with the president? I mean, the president is essentially going there as some kind of a whistleblower here, if we are to really take the president seriously about his fight against corruption.
No, look, the SCOPA is also benefiting already. It's not as if the president has not given this explanation that what was the context. SCOPA is already benefiting from that, and the president has been very clear that if or when called upon, he would avail himself. But he actually subjects himself to the processes that are there. So SCOPA, in as much as SCOPA has decided not to call the president, but he already at least has given this side of the story.
Mr. Besani, I appreciate your time and thank you very much for joining us. Head of the presidency there in the ANC, Sibongile Besani, responding to that. A bit later on, of course, we'll speak to the opposition parties in that SCOPA committee who are less than impressed with that response from the president.